Eugenie Sage.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker, thank you. I'm very pleased to speak on behalf of the Green Party in support of the bill and join the chorus of approval for this bill promoted by the Honourable Nicky Wagner. And it certainly isn't a controversial bill. As others have noted, there are only 4 submissions and they were very generally supportive of the bill's intent to provide a legislative basis for the Trust's work to update and modernise its governance, to consolidate its administration and enable the Trust to do the work to recover from the Canterbury earthquakes. And I think, Mr Speaker, I am enormously grateful for the vision of those who successfully advocated in the 1970s to protect the Arts Centre against demolition. That would have been a travesty. And I'm also very grateful because we have seen, as Ruth Dyson noted, wholesale destruction of heritage buildings in Christchurch post-quakes because of Sarah's casualness and keenness to use the Section 38 notices under the emergency legislation to sign off the demolition of Cranmer Courts, the Majestic Theatre and over 200 other significant heritage buildings in the central city. So the work being done by the Trust Board on strengthening and repairing and restoring the Arts Centre is really significant because of how much we have lost. It's also significant because of the importance of these buildings. There are 23 buildings on the Arts Centre site. All but one of them are listed as Category 1 historic places by the New Zealand Historic Places Trust, Pohere Taonga. They are buildings with special or outstanding historical or cultural heritage significance and value. And like others, I pay tribute to the current Arts Centre Trust Board, the leadership that they are providing, their chair, Jen Crawford, the CEO, Andrew Lovett, and the skill and dedication of all of those who are working on the site, from the international team of stonemasons to the design engineers, the craftsmen, carpenters, the plasterers and the builders. Because when you've got all but one of these 23 buildings having sustained significant damage, you've got a restoration, not you, Mr Speaker, we have a restoration project that's costing about $290 million. It's going to take 7 years. It's expected to be completed in 2019. And when you go behind the safety fences and have a look at the work that is being done, it is easy to see that the challenges are immense. Buildings are being completely gutted, floors are being lifted, timber ceilings being peeled back to enable concrete cap beams to be put in place, proper earthquake strengthening, a lot more attention to modern technology to ensure that these buildings are warm, and having been a tenant of the old chemistry building, which was freezing in winter, that's a very welcome addition. So, Mr Speaker, this legislation is good legislation. Its objects in Clause 5 are for the Arts Centre to be held in trust as an outstanding cultural centre for use by Christchurch residents and visitors. And the vision of the Trust Board and its staff is for the Arts Centre to be a cultural hub of the city and region, a vibrant place of culture, art and education. And if this bill can help achieve that aim, it will be very worthwhile. Mr Speaker, the Arts Centre, like the Canterbury Museum and like Christchurch Cathedral, is one of the neo-Gothic buildings which were popular in the Victorian era to revive the details and forms of the original Gothic style of the Middle Ages. The Arts Centre was designed by 6 different architectural practices, built over about 50 years, but it's got a cohesion and a unity. The architects have worked and respected the work of those that have gone before them. 2 of the major architects for the Arts Centre were Benjamin Mountfort and Samuel Hurst Seeger, and they are responsible for the grand design of the precinct, the features like the quadrangles. Benjamin Mountfort also had a major role in the design of the Canterbury Museum and the Christchurch Cathedral. And of course, these buildings are all linked by Worcester Street, now Worcester Boulevard. But there's been a very different approach between what has happened at the Arts Centre and what is happening at the Cathedral. The Arts Centre Trust, the former trust, had the wisdom to ensure that the Arts Centre was very well insured. That meant that the restoration and strengthening work was able to start quickly, and it was assisted by some generous local and international donations. At the Arts Centre, we are seeing the extraordinary challenges being responded to with inspiration, with passion to develop creative solutions to those engineering challenges. We've got a lot of energy, a can-do attitude, a pride in what is being done, and an obvious sign of progress with the rebuild. It is an inspiring project. Christchurch Cathedral is the very opposite. The obduracy of the Church Property Trust, its failure to even protect the interior of the cathedral from the weather by closing the gaping wound of what was once the rose window and the spires. The whole cathedral now, Mr. Speaker, has become a symbol of failure. It's a symbol of having been defeated by the earthquakes, and yet it could be so very different. And I strongly encourage the Bishop, Victoria Matthews, and the Church Property Trust to do what the Local Government and Environment Select Committee did, to take a visit to the Arts Centre and see what can be achieved. If you have got passion, leadership and engineering skill and commitment to restoring a place that is important to the people of Christchurch. 80% of the cathedral structure still stands. The roof structure is entirely intact, and over 100 structural and seismic engineers have said that there is no need to demolish it. They have said that the cathedral could be restored and with modern seismic strengthening could comply with the highest code standards for public buildings. The Great Christchurch Buildings Trust has estimated that the costs of restoring the cathedral would be around $67 million, substantially less than what it is costing to restore the Arts Centre, and that trust has offered to help the Church Property Trust meet the $27 million shortfall between the church's insurance payments and the costs of restoration. So the building of the cathedral, Mr. Speaker, was a huge undertaking for a small community. It took 40 years to complete. The Arts Centre restoration is taking 7 years. The cathedral restoration might take a similar time. But given that these buildings have been around for over a century, given that they will outlast us all, that is a very short time. So I would encourage Bishop Matthews and the Trust to look at what real leadership, creative energy and a respect for the craftsmanship and skill of the past is doing at the Arts Centre, of what strong vision to return and retain a cultural treasure is achieving, and then apply that to the cathedral. Because what has been achieved at the Arts Centre has many practical lessons for restoring the cathedral. The cathedral was designed by the same architect, Benjamin Mountford. It's got some of the same materials, those big basalt and limestone blocks, the big timber roofing and supporting roof trusses, and the slate roof. The cathedral, like the Arts Centre, is one of Christchurch's landmarks. It's a legacy of our history. It can be a symbol of the city again, but it needs a major change in attitude of the Church Property Trust and of the Bishop. It needs them to be inspired by the same vision and sense of purpose that we are seeing in the Arts Centre Trust and that this bill is designed to encourage. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Green Party is very pleased to support this bill.
I call Ron Mark.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, I rise on behalf of New Zealand First to likewise endorse